Don McPherson. Don, you were a classmate. You were here at give or take the same time as Felicia Leggett-Jack. I think you're a year or two or three older than her. Did you see her comments last night after the game by chance?
I did, and Felicia is a good friend, and as you're right, we overlapped for a number of years. I think I might be just a year ahead of her.
Okay.
But we were friends in college. Had a great group of friends, Vera Jones, and a lot of the women who've been around that program for a long time. We're all good friends. We hung out together, and she's a passionate coach. She's a passionate person. She's a Syracuse native. And I kind of felt her frustration, when you kind of look up in the stands, you don't see a packed house, and then you look at other places, top flight programs, and you see a packed house at UConn or Tennessee or, Rutgers and other places where there's a little bit more fan support. It's a little bit frustrating for her. I can completely understand her comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, especially after you've lost a rough game, you can understand how stuff like that bubbles out and bubbles over. It's always, I feel this conversation, though, Donnie, Felicia, previous, whatever, this comes up every 3 or 4 years. Why don't more people go to the games? There's 8 million reasons for it, right? It's one where I don't know. Is it a problem? It feels like people like, is it a problem to be solved? It's like, no. It's like, if you're interested, go. If not, I don't know why you're the people complaining about it.
Yeah, I think there's another underlying issue that I think is starting to emerge in college athletics, and this is not just here in Syracuse, is that all the money and the attention is being paid to what's going on with football and sort of the realignment of conferences, the emergence of NIL, the emergence of sort of what we think is going to happen in college athletics, and that local feel, the local players, the local feel of the game, I think is starting to wane because it's become such a media-centric endeavor, college sports and sports generally, that going to the game is not what it used to be. Living here in Syracuse for the past almost 2 years now, you don't hear those stories of going with my mom and dad to the game, going and sitting on my grandfather's lap and going to a game like you hear people talk about going to Archbold or going to the early days of the Dome, and so even that local support. But just getting up to, and let's face it, we're going to be honest about this. The Dome is a hard place to get to for some people. It literally is up a hill, and it's not such a convenient place for parking and all those other things. So there's lots of barriers to, why the Dome is not full. Will the Dome be full on Saturday for the football game? Let's see. Let's see if the local fans come out knowing that Syracuse got a shot to drive home a 9-win season. Are we going to come out for that?
Yeah, and the other thing, HDTV is really fantastic. Who can argue with it? It's great. You sit on your couch and everything looks great. That's part of the reason for a lot of this stuff.
Exactly. Not just your couch. I was talking to a group of students the other night at a school, and it was Monday night, and these guys were watching the football game on their phones, right? They don't have to be at home to watch the game. They can watch it right there on their phone, so they don't have to be at home anymore.
All right, so that was kind of our this was a random topic that popped up today, but Don McPherson joins us every Thursday from Feldman Brothers. Let's get back to the last game, Donnie. Out to Cal, and obviously there's a lot of concerns. You're flying cross country. You just took a loss to BC, and here they go. Most comprehensive performance of the season. I was very impressed with what they did last Saturday.
We talked about this week, when we did the post game in week one about, what's Fran Brown's grade going to be at the end of this year and all the different things that he's got to handle. And one of those things that, always for a coach, it's making those crucial decisions, those fourth down decisions. How do you manage the team? And with, as we talked about last week, going from Boston College, from Boston to the Bay Area with a shortened week because of that extensive travel, how do you keep your team focused coming off, as you said, coming off the law? How do you keep your team focused and moving forward against what I thought was a pretty good Cal team? I thought Cal looked flat. Mm-hmm. Cal looked like the team that traveled across country, and Syracuse looked like the team that had the extra day of rest. But give Fran Brown a lot of credit. The team was ready to play, and I thought, he was, if people remember, he was 4 for 4. I'm going to sound like a New Yorker, 4 for 4 on fourth down, right? That accent comes out, but he did a great job. I thought those plays, those fourth down conversions, really start to break the back of a defense when you convert 4 for 4.
Yeah, I don't have the number in front of me right now, but Kyle and I were looking at that earlier this week, and it was, I forget what they were, 8 of 19 on third down or something like that. That was okay, but when you add the fourth down conversions, it's like, wow, that was a really good job at staying on the field the whole game.
exactly. I looked at the same stat. I think it was like 7 for 17 on third down, but you add in the 4 times that they go for in the fourth down. You're staying on the field, you're keeping your defense rested, and you're really hitting the Cal defense in a real demoralizing way.
They weren't all touchdowns, but they did score on their first 6 drives of the game with, I believe it was 3 field goals and 3 touchdowns. And how about that? Don't look now, Donnie. They can make field goals now, so that makes the ends of some of these drives. It takes away a lot of the tough decisions for the head coach here.
Yeah, we once again talking about the job that Fran Brown has done. We talked about that early in the season when special teams didn't look good. You always go to the head coach. That's sort of the head coach's responsibility. And badly we have to get those guys who aren't starters fired up and getting the opportunity to get out and play. And to your point, if the kicker can kick, we talked about that as well. Improvement in special teams is a good sign for this team.
Yeah, what does that tell you? I mean, that's a big picture, not like the specifics of, okay, it's good they're making their field goals now. It's good they're not getting their punts blocked. Obviously, that's good. But the idea that, like, there were all of these problems, first-year head coach, going back within the month, right? Like, all this stuff was a mess a month and a half ago, that whatever Fran's doing or directing others to do or allowing others to do, who knows what it actually is, right? It is allowing this stuff to be fixed here as the year goes along.
Yeah, I was just talking about being at a school, and I was talking about sort of those guiding principles that you have, those core values that you have. They see you through adversity. And Fran Brown talks about DART, and that's been his mantra. And that means, that word relentless that he talks about. That's what you have to be to get through. It's a long season. And a long season, again, I know I sound like a broken record for those young people who don't understand what that is. It's a record that plays music, and if it breaks, it just makes the same sound over and over and over. Just have to define what a record is for people who might not know. I sound like a broken record when I say we talked about this earlier in the season, and without the benefit of a preseason and with transfers, you just don't know what you have until you have some adversity, and that's what you have to give. Once again, Fran, a lot of credit, Coach Brown, a lot of credit for how he's handled this team to come through those early season problems and improve. And that means he's still coaching up these kids to get better. He's still inspiring them to get better each week, and that's a great sign for the program. That's how you build a program, by letting people know that you're going to get better over the course of the season. Mm-hmm. September is not what your season matters. It's where you are in November. It's
refreshing to see here them succeeding in November this year, as we know that has not often been the case of late here. They've won now 2 out of 3, a good chance for 3 out of 4 this weekend, and then we'll see what we get with the Miami game, which should be, in my mind, a heck of a game coming up in 9 days from now in the Dome. We got Don McPherson with us, our weekly conversation brought to you by Feldman Brothers. And Donnie, a cool thing going on at this game, halftime. Coach Mack will be going into the Ring of Honor. Unfortunately, won't be there to see it, but that's going to be really cool to see your old coach get honored at halftime this week.
It will be really special, and I think for folks around Central New York who just love Coach Mack, I think it's really hard to understate how much he meant to his players. And when he got here in 1980, the program was struggling a bit, and he kind of shepherded in a whole new philosophy coming from the NFL, and really. You thought a guy coming from the NFL would have to be a little bit more lofty. He was such a guy who was about community, about family. His coaching staffs, they were together for many years. Many of those men, they coached on their staff. And he definitely was a father figure to a lot of young men. And somebody said to me, is he like a father figure to you? I said, no, he's like a coach. And that, to me, is even a greater compliment. Because he was a guy who knew how to take young men, knowing he had them for a short amount of time, and inspired them to be great at what they did, inspired us to have pride in what we do, and to love each other. Anytime I used this expression with somebody just the other day, it had nothing to do with football. I was talking about a friend who was going through some stuff, and I said, we got to love him up. And that was one of Coach Mack's sayings. Whenever somebody was having, if you saw a guy, we talked about kickers, you saw a guy have a bad game, Mack would say, hey, we got to love him up. And that meant we got to rally around and support one another. That's the kind of man he was. And if you see the legacy of his grandsons, Mackie and Cameron, who came through the program, and the legacy that he's left here in Central New York, it's really quite special. And he's a very special man, was a very special man, and we're fortunate to have him now go up in the Ring of Honor and have a lasting legacy at Syracuse University.
Yeah, well said, Donnie. And what's so crazy here is that say if Mac was Fran Brown, if he was 41 years old today, that he might not have had the chance to have the legacy, right? You look at the on-the-field stuff, you were there, like the first 7 years was, there's the Nebraska win, there's the Cherry Bowl, and like essentially that's it to hang your hat on, and then 87 happened. Like I don't know if in the current day and age, I'm actually pretty certain in the current day and age, I don't know if 87 ever happens, right, Donnie? Because he gets shoved out after 4 years.
You are so right, Brian. At the end of 86, and people don't remember, we lost to Rutgers in 86. People always ask me what was the most significant game in 87. I say it was the Rutgers loss in 86. Because he went internal with the program. He went internal with us as players. And people will call him for his job. There's a video somewhere out there, and I think it's on my YouTube channel of some of the legacy of he and I. And in '86, fans were protesting. They wanted to get a new coach. They were chanting, get a new coach and goodbye Mac and all this kind of stuff. And the crazy thing was Mac said, "I like this where fans really care." Mm-hmm. And he stuck with it, and the chancellor stuck with him, and Jake Grauhammer stuck with him, and eventually, I got to tell you one of my favorite things when you talked about his age. One of the videos is an interview with him. I'm so glad I got the guy in that interview. He said, when you're a young coach, you think it's 90% you, 10% the players. He said, when you get a little bit more experience, you think maybe it's 50-50. He said, but when you get older, and he was in the tail end of his college coaching career when I had him, and he said, it's 90% the players. He said, you're lucky if you're 10%. You get them ready, and you step back, and that's why he was such an exuberant guy on the sideline, because he really knew that he had prepared guys to go play. And he wasn't a fan. He was still a coach. But he was definitely there just enjoying watching young people play. And that's the guy that I was lucky enough to play for was the one who got us ready during the week. And then, as he would always say, let it fly.
Yeah, and I do Coach Mack had a story for literally everything, and they always took some weird twists and turns during it. But, you go back to those days, and there was the Sack Mac pack. And Coach was always like, they'd wear the paper bags to the games over the head, but they wouldn't cut out eye holes. It was that bad. They didn't even want to see it. They just put the bag on and go to the games, which I know was not actually true, but that is just the way Coach would mac up a story a little bit.
He was the best. Can I just know there's like so many great stories about Mac, but one that Central New York fans would truly appreciate and love. Before the Penn State game, and I have this on a few different accounts, and this is a true story. Before the Penn State game, Mac would go to the church every day. He'd stop and light a candle. Game day, he goes and lights a candle. He's in church lighting a candle, saying a prayer before the game. In walks Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno goes over, kneels down, lights a candle, and Mac waits for Joe Paterno to leave. And after Joe Paterno leaves, Mac goes over and blows out his candle.
I've heard that one. It's a class. There's the best part about Mac is like everyone that's crossed his path has something like that they've heard at some point.
And it speaks to one, his undying faith, right? He believed that candle meant something. Yeah. And number two, that he was not above reproach, right? He was not above blowing out Paterno's candle.
Yeah. I don't know if that was before the 87 game or a different game. It was before the 87 game. It worked like a charm. People are falling over on the first play, right?
Exactly right.
There we go. All right, Donnie, as we wrap up here, it is UConn this week. UConn, this is a weird one, right? Like we've had the schedule for months now, and this had always been like they're going to win this game, and I still think they're going to win this game. But then you wake up and you're like, wait a minute, UConn's 7-3. This suddenly is a little trickier than I think we all thought it was going to be 9-10 months ago.
It certainly is. I think, there's two things that psychologically, right? You had that long trip. You got through the Cal game. You played great. Now everyone's talking about Miami. They're a playoff team, and that's going to be a big showdown. Thanksgiving weekend, the whole deal. And it's scary because UConn is 7-3, although their 3 losses against FBS teams, every other one that wins are not against big-time opponents. But it's still UConn. It's still a bunch of players that didn't get drafted by Syracuse or got snubbed by Syracuse, who have a little something to prove. And it could be a letdown game for players here who might not know the relationship with UConn and say, oh, it's just UConn, that team in Connecticut. They don't even play football there. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of psychological things around this game. Once again, the challenge on Fran Brown to keep his team up and ready for the UConn because, like you said, they do know how to win.
Yeah, I mean, they're 7-3. Hey, they have literally the same record as Syracuse. So you look at that now. Strength of schedule and the whole thing would right. separate them, and we'll see how it goes here this Saturday. All right, Donnie, good stuff. Enjoy the game this weekend, and we'll hook up again next week. All right.
All right, Brad. Look forward to it.
There he is. That's our guy Don McPherson, as always.